Hello and welcome to the newly named, although at this point pretty much perennial show of the Double Swing. We've now given it a name. There's two of us, of course, and everyone knows we love good fundamental Counter-Strike, so we of course named it after something we really like to see on the server, whether it being analysts or casting like Yumi does. We could love a good double swing, and it just made sense. So yeah, the preview show / the unnamed preview show has finally been given a name, and we're here to preview IEM Sydney, which is looking out to be actually a quite fun event. I think we complained extensively about the weakness of some of the groups in ESL Pro League and how it just didn't really hook us in immediately. But I looked through these groups and I thought, yeah, I mean, aside from some small changes that rosters are currently experiencing, you know, some things like Vitality losing a coach, maybe throwing things out of line, all these teams look actually really interesting. And the groups look fairly well balanced and, well, pretty stacked. So it's going to be an interesting one to preview. Yumi, of course, joining me. How you been?
Yeah, I mean, doing good. It is a shame that the first event that we're previewing actually doesn't feature Config, who is obviously a big inspiration as to why we went with Double Swing in the first place. But we're going to be sitting through a transitional period, moving into IEM Sydney. This is also the first big event that's going to be on Counter-Strike 2. So even if there are teams that look good, we have it's just a guessing game as to whether these teams will be able to translate any of that into Counter-Strike 2 at all, because we're on MR12. There are best of ones in the opening rounds. There's also the unexplored territories about whether there are new strategies that people are sitting on with the smokes, with the Molotovs, and some of the small map changes and balancing. That and Counter-Strike 2 isn't a complete game at the moment. There's a lot of open-endedness with this event that, further down the stretch, we might look back at this event and go, okay, that was the first one. But would that translate into today's game? I'm talking maybe a year in the pipeline.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Some of the things we're going to have to look at really is how the mechanical changes will affect, I think, certain underdog teams. Because if you think about it, we were talking about before the show went live, before we started recording, we're like, yeah, the whole peaks advantage, the way you can swing on people feels kind of OP. When I start to look back on my picks and I think, I didn't pick the craziest underdogs. But this could be great for a team like, a Lin Vision, who can just W key wide swing, hit some crazy headshots. That could be a really big impactful factor. But you're right, it is going to be kind of tough to predict this. Who's going to be abusing the mechanics right? Who's going to have some crazy nade pops on smokes, set up on cool timings? Who's going to actually have these creative ideas already? Especially teams who have still been playing CSGO events pretty much up until now, who've been quite busy with their schedule, with Blast and all this other stuff. Will they have actually had time to prep this? It'll be really revealing to find out. I've got a feeling some teams have, because some teams massively underperformed during the Blast Showdown events. But yeah, let's get right into it. Let's start with Yumi, your first pick, favorite from Group A, I believe.
Yeah. So my first pick, I think we'll stick with Group A at the start.
Yeah.
But my Group A favorite is recent winners of ESL Pro League and Titan slayers of every favorite at that event. It's MOUZ. A young team that could have good translation to Counter-Strike 2, that play... Honestly, one of the things that's really taken me about this team is, while I underestimated them a lot before, with the Shue addition as the in-game leader, or I guess they've got him back. To have him back, it feels like they always have an opening plan for somebody doing something at the start of a round. And they are willing to pounce at opportunities. That's going to lead to small mistakes, rounds that they feel like they shouldn't lose. They lose, I think, during that ESL Pro League run, they lost quite a few sort of low buy or versus low buy rounds because they're trying to still instigate action. But they always seem to be going very proactively onto their CT sides a lot. And, I remember watching that ENCE game in the quarterfinals, I believe. And there were several moments in that game where ENCE's nuke is one of those ENCE is one of those teams on nuke that feels like they've always got a good counteraction to anything that's happening on the map. They were super restricted in that game, and I think ENCE are a team that are very, very hard to tie down in that same way. But that's because MOUZ take a lot of risks, and they're willing to do so because they've got young firepower as well as a Torji that didn't go missing. That was a really big key for them at ESL Pro League. That and Jim Fat. He also just seemed to be popping heads at this event.
Yeah, MOUZ Sports, when you have an AWPer on that roster, it looked like a whole different team, really. An absolute bowler of an AWPer as well, because Torshi, he's always been like a high opening attempts guy on MOUZ, like relatively. It's just that now that Shuei's here, and he's gotten a lot more confident, it seems, or a lot more belief in himself and in the way they're creating these openings, he's increased his volume, and he's increased his efficiency. On the, I think, 43 maps they've played together with Shuei, he's actually up both. So that's absolutely insane. I think in the past, he was sitting like the mid-60s, low 60s in terms of success rate on opening frags, which actually isn't great on an AWP. I mean, sure, he always did it at a higher volume, especially on the defensive end, than most AWPers ever would. But yeah, it wasn't actually that efficient. So it's great to see that massive spike in efficiency, massive increase in attempts, and a lot of confidence for that guy. YouM3 as well, tail of the tape, really, like the tail of the event, because he's not putting up huge like fragging impact numbers, your opening kills, not necessarily that many multis, but what he's looking like right now is he's the perfecto on the major winning Na'Vi.
Yep.
He's the fourth best player who can win you around at any given moment. To have that sort of luxury is amazing. So yeah, mousesports, I would have laughed at this pick like 3 months ago. Now I think it's absolutely perfect. They look really set to be good. I don't know how much of it's going to carry over to CS2, but you can't really expect the team of young fraggers to fall off. You'd expect the older teams who maybe aren't as willing to go out and crack a whole new game, who don't have that kind of excitement for it, don't have that JL, dreaming of the game type mentality for it. So it'd be interesting to see how they keep it up compared to these older teams.
I think one of the positives for them is that their aggro CT sides is something that will translate very well to Counter-Strike 2, in my opinion. I don't think we're going to see a lot of statics, the defenses on CS2 at the moment, especially at this first event where, like we were sort of alluding to earlier on, there is a bit of a hiccup with the game at the moment where it just feels more difficult to punish people on a wide swing, and maybe that doesn't happen on LAN as much. There's a lot of network encoding and interp and things like that are probably affecting how subtick feels to the online experience versus on LAN. But when we are on LAN, those tendencies at the start will certainly be noted, and we'll have to sort of extrapolate from there. But I think I could just play right into MOUZ's hands. Like the fact that they are willing to go for those opening fights, players like Xertion are just enabled to be these sort of lurking high impact presences in the mid round because he has good openers with players like Frozen, like Torji, or like Jimmy as a closer. You have that presence on the map. I just feel like they've hit a good stride of performance for all these players to get their optimal performance in their role as well.
Yeah, 100%. So be curious to see what we get. I just really I really want to see more from them. Hopefully they can keep it up, because we've seen peaks from them in the past where they've hit high tournament placings. I know previously it was under Dexter, and they weren't able to maybe maintain anything. I really hope they continue it. But yeah, let's move on to my pick, my favourite in Group A. I've gone for what I already previewed before I even started the video, really, as a kind of risky pick. That's going to be Vitality. On paper, of course, you still look at the roster, you still think this is the major winning roster, this is a team that consistently goes deep at every event. How could you possibly doubt yourself? Oh, great genius, KingT. Well, here's why. They lost their coach, obviously Zonic, great coach. Obviously, I think he sometimes gets too much credit. Going from one all-time great roster that seemed destined to succeed to another. Yeah, sure, you're going to get majors with different rosters, but he definitely has an impact on the game, and definitely an impact on, I think, the comfort of the Danish players. There used to be two, now there's only one, but I think Megas is a very important part of the team. And taking away Zonic for a start kind of, I think, detracts from his comfort, from his confidence, but then taking him away, and also we're hearing all these linked rumours that he could be the one to follow. And I think, that's going to be a bit of a distraction. So all in all, I think this team, maybe they're under-prepped for this event. They probably don't have that much motivation compared to others to be absolutely banging at this first event of CS2, but I can't pick against them. They have ZywOo. They have a really solid-looking IGL in Apex, and they still have plenty of rifle talent surrounding ZywOo, so hard to pick against them. That's why I've got them as my pick. I've got more faith in them than I do FaZe right now. And I'm just hoping that they continue to deliver and, make it deep in this tournament as well, as they are so consistently doing.
Yeah, I think Vitality are in a weird spot right now because I'm not convinced. Well, I just don't know how their mental or like you said, their preparation is going to be coming into this event, because for the reasons you mentioned, sure. But then as well, having Flames and Spinks with, very recent developments in the news about,
Yeah.
conflicts in their country. Like that is like those things weigh on you. We saw it as well when uh, Russia Ukraine was happening as well. That is not an easy thing to beat past, as well as just take part in competition while you're doing so. So
Mm.
I'm worried about this Vitality team mainly for the reason that this almost feels like a knock-on effect of removing Dupree from this roster. Like I felt like Zonic, Dupree, Magisk were going to be together, and when the Flames move happened, I really liked it. But the way that it's happening now with Zonic now stepping down and all these rumors that are being sparked up, it makes me believe that this is something that was completely over the head of Zonic as a coach. Like he didn't have influence on whether or not Dupree was removed, and this is
Mm.
the fallout after the fact. It's a weird chain of events maybe that's linked to that one move. Even though on paper I think it is a good upgrade. It's just, not everything can be done from that perspective when you're talking about, team chemistry, dynamic, team culture, things like that. Like those do shift when you remove or add players, especially if you do so without consultancy of the whole squad or the coaching staff, for example. Because when that rumor was first started, I remember players like Apex were like, "Why are people talking about these rumors? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Well, this isn't something that we want. Like, you don't have to talk to management if this is true." And it turned out to be true. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes of Vitality, even though the players themselves very solid.
Yeah, more distractions. But I think I should have touched on this because I was thinking about this, but I didn't really mention it. Performance-wise, there's actually not been that much to celebrate since Gamers 8. Their Pro League run, sure, they won 3 games in groups. They beat no one, and they lost to Monty. So it's actually been a really disappointing run-up to this event, just in terms of Pro League, because they beat Movistar Riders, Ninjas in Pajamas, and Orcs, and then lost to Monty. They basically played a CCT event, made it out of groups, and lost in the quarters. Like, that's all they did. No offense to NIP, they're just really not that kind of team right now. So this is probably one of the weakest looking Vitalities entering a tournament we've seen in a long time, just based on the last event's results. They've not had a perfect run by any means, but this is not great. So I'm really hoping we see a bit of a bounce back. Yeah, it's going to be hard to see it. It's going to be hard to be sure about it with all the distractions and the noise going on around the team.
Yeah, definitely a difficult place to be, I think for both those guys. Or for everybody on that team, rather. But
Yeah.
I will now shift into my underdog pick. I'm going to stick with Group A. And I'm going to go with a team I didn't really think I would be picking, to be quite honest. GamerLegion. I've gone with GamerLegion. And here's the thing. I have a soft spot. Bolt, longtime UKCS player, and also me, personal believer in A-Core as an AWPer, being done a misservice when I was on his time on Mouse Sports. Didn't get what he signed up for. Thought it was going to be Carrigan, got Dexter instead. Boo. And as well, an inting Rops. So I don't think he was given the best hand. And to see him sort of redeem himself with this GamerLegion squad, even though they lost their best player in Imma, to lose Shue as well. We've seen that the Imma move isn't quite as big a slam dunk as people were really hyping up coming out of that major into Na'Vi, for example. I think there was a lot more about the team culture that I hold in high regard. And I think Snacks is a great figure to bring in, ideally with some kind of support structure in mind to make his transition into in-game leading. And I know I think he was in-game leading before joining Gamerlegion for this particular on his like Polish mixed team thing that he was doing. He was prepping maybe to go to make this transition, and I don't know. I have a good feeling about Snacks coming into this team because his play style. He can play a lot slower if he wants to while calling. And I just felt like this team needed a bit of experience, and that's who Snacks is. He's Mr. Experience.
Yeah, it's an interesting addition because I think he said in an interview he didn't want to rush into IGLing for a good like top level team. It's something I think a lot of players should kind of do if they're actually going to be serious about IGLing. It's just we know the majority of the time you see a random player take it up, it's not because they're serious about it. It's just because someone had to do it, and they decided, I talk, I can do it, and it usually ends up going pretty terribly. So glad to see he's actually taking a more serious route towards becoming an IGL rather than just being forced upon him when he got slightly washed. You know, that actually happens a lot. But I don't know. I don't like this roster. They've been annoying me by not being terrible every single LAN they play, which is getting on my nerves. I'm going to be completely honest. It's getting on my nerves. Every time they go to a LAN, they're not horrible. They're actually decent to fine. Despite never having a real superstar. And that's the thing I'm going to talk about now. They don't have a real, not even a star at this point. They saw their Pro League run ended with every single player with the rating between like 0.93 and 0.96. Not even A-Core can get a 1.0 rating on this roster. Their best of 3 win against NIP, which I guess was their biggest of the event. They had 3 riflers sub 110, just scraping through. And they seem to find ways of winning rounds by hook or by crook, just every here and there. Never convincing, yet so many of them. So I wonder how this is going to look with Snacks now, because whilst that trend carried through Shuhei's time there and through the time they had briefly had Neelan, surely this is going to break it, because Neelan's never been one step, like, really mess with the way teams play. I've seen him take over, then leave teams before, and seen almost nothing actually really change up. I think he follows the coach's system to a T and tries to insert himself as best he can. So that was a miracle, firstly, that they managed to maintain their level with him. But the fact that you now got Snacks and he's going to surely make changes, so you've been taking this actually seriously, calling a decent game on other teams. I wonder at what point their lack of firepower comes back to bite them in the arse. I think it surely has to be now. Surely.
I mean, so long as Volt shoots and A-Core does too, I think that they have enough. You know, I think their median firepower level is enough to beat some of these other teams in this group in particular. Like even that first round against FaZe, I'm not saying they have the grandest chance in the world. I'm saying, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's too far away from like a 30-25 kind of area where depends what phase you get in the server. You know, Rops is grinding a lot of CS2, but I don't know how much of that's going to translate into official play. And yeah, I'm basically skeptical of how much Neelan actually calls. I think Snacks will have more an opinion on like what to do in a mid round and what he wants to do outside of a system. So I don't know. I just have a good feeling about this one. It doesn't really have to be backed by anything other than that for me.
True. With underdog picks, sometimes it is just a vibe, you know? Just, I'm vibing with this team. I'd never have vibe with this team. I refuse to ever vibe with this team. It seems impossible for me to actually get behind them. And I'm hoping this is finally when they start performing to my expectations.
Listen, I discredited MOUZ for too long. I'm overcompensating with GamerLegion.
Alright, we'll see how that goes. Whereas, me, for my underdog pick, I think I picked the underdog we both wanted. Gonna be completely honest. Ain't no way anyone came into Group A and didn't look at BetBoom and think, that looks like a fucking good team. Not necessarily world-beating, but actually fun, talented, deep, with a maybe incorrectly maligned IGL. Ooh, this could be spicy. This could be real spicy. Like, we were both looking at the qualifier when they were trying to get into this exact event, thinking, oh, please let them get in, and please let them be in a group with Cloud9. Especially with the run of form Cloud9's been on. That would have been a game for the ages. But instead, they're in the other group. They're opening against Vitality in a best of one. I honestly think they upset it, and then Vitality run the lower bracket of the group. Because a BO1 against a team with, well, I'm going to put it this way. White Swinging is OP. A team with Chiron, you're getting shat on. That just has to be the case. He is undoubtedly one of the most overpowered White Swingers I've seen. It used to be a Mirage sort of one trick. He would one swing top mid and one shot everyone every single round. It was kind of annoying, especially back in the Academy League days. But now you look at the roster, let's take a breath and just think about it for a sec. They got Zorte on the AWP. We know he's a bona fide talent. He may not be on Shiro's level, but he's not exactly far off. Like, I'd put him up there with Wonderful, up there with Dexter. The next sort of step up of CIS AWPers who are crazy good, amongst the best in the world, just happen to not be one of the 3 OP god tier players we've had for so many years. Siren, I thought at times on Spirit looks underwhelming, but that was on a raw mechanical talent basis. He always did the right thing. Like, he never put a foot wrong. And on this roster, it seems to be working out a treat. I think he's one of the highest rated players on the team. He's been getting loads of kills. Everything's been working out for him. So clearly, Mr. System Follower is having success in this system. So maybe Nafany, separate from Groove, has had some other ideas and has figured out how to use certain players very well.
Listen, I've been a big Nafany sympathizer. I'm maybe one of the first. For them to have made it to this event, I thought it would be a super treat if they got like Cloud9 first round, or like even somewhere in the bracket in that group. I like that when I look at this BetBoom team, there's some essence of some of the Cloud9 things that they used to do, where it's like heavy aggressive defaulting and like way too much open territory and mid-round moments. That happens with this team, but they also go with a lot of like really fast bursty plays that feel way more on the fly, off the cuff, and they get away with it because they've got super aggressive pieces like Chiron, or even Zorte that's going to be in like third behind him.
Yeah, he's so comfortable in the chaos, isn't he, Zorte?
Yeah, and he's good, and he's actually good on rifles as well. So I like this team just because it is like the narrative comeback story for a player, for Nafany particularly, because if you can rebound as quickly as you did from being on an underwhelming Cloud9 or an underwhelming Gambit transition, and being touted as, oh, well, you're the problem, the in-game leading sucks, and immediately coming back into tier 1 events with a brand new roster, brand new pieces, and you actually might be able to outcall some of these people in the group. Yeah, I think people would owe Nafany an apology.
Massive.
I think people already owe him an apology to a certain extent, but this is the one point where you can actively redeem and have evidence to support that you know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah, it would be. It'd be a huge fuck you to everyone. And yeah, just to close out the roster, we got Danitz, who's the biggest question mark. For me, when I saw him signed, I went through the roster, I was going, oh, sick. Who is Danitz? But hopefully he looks as solid as he has had so far. Like, hopefully he holds up on LAN, right? That's all I can say about that. And yeah, Nafany, IGL, that would be gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. If he makes it out of groups just by itself, would be enough of a redemption, I think. But this team, if it gets rolling, and if CS2 leans in their favor in the way I'm sort of, my headcanon kind of envisions, with their pieces that are so well suited to the style of play that could be overpowered, I think this could be really the team to watch and to be afraid of. Kind of an upstart, rebellious team that's going to start qualifying to more events, receiving those invites because they will go skyrocketing up the rankings if they get a high placing here. So it'll be really interesting to see them, I think, develop after this. And if they can get a really good placing, I want to see them at way more events. It'll be an amazing story. That certainly will be. There'll be some 20-minute video essay somewhere that will get hundreds of thousands of views about Nafany's comeback. I know I'm not going to make it, but someone will, and it'll be really sick. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, this is like a pipsqueak version of like Carrigan getting removed from FaZe and going into another roster afterwards. Like, doesn't have the same track record, doesn't have the same achievements, even in his failures. Yeah. But it could be. People love a redemption arc. I do, at least. So
it'd be a great fuck you. That's the point. That's the great part.
That's all I want.
So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of our Group A actual picks, but we do have some other teams to talk about. And no doubt, we briefly touched on certain aspects of both FaZe and Na'Vi, but let's talk about them a bit more in detail. And neither one of us wanting to pick FaZe. What's your reasoning for this one?
I don't know who FaZe are. Like, from event to event, I feel like we're wearing a different mask. Like, sometimes they look super scary. You have players, in particular players like Rops that seem to sometimes just take over games. And, not always from the most proactive positions, but will have these, honestly, just game-breaking positions and will win you those games because of it. And then you have games where, I don't know, Rain will have a pop-off, or Twist will get, like, random three consecutive round entries on a site, and you're thinking, why can't this team do this all the time? But then those games are still always close. Like, that was the problem with the FaZe a period for FaZe where they were winning quite a lot, or they were at least contesting for the top, is that those games were close, but they always came up with like the clutch bit at the end. Some of these games in Pro League, I mean, it wasn't even like MOUZ destroyed FaZe in their game in Pro League, which is honestly shocking to see, because I thought at some point or another you would find a Brokey or a Rain or a Rops round, but it's just like nothing worked. So I don't know what's happening for FaZe. I think I touched on this before, but FaZe as a company or an esports organization are also just not in the best position at the moment. Like their stock price is atrocious, and they're probably going to be delisted.
100%. And they're gone. Yeah.
And you just don't know whether or not they're going to be able to still fund teams of their caliber for much longer afterwards. So I don't really know what's going on with FaZe. I just don't have a lot of confidence in them at the moment, even though, like, yeah, they could still do it. I'll have no problem picking them in the future and just going, yeah, they look good now, but this is just not one of those periods.
No, that's very true. It's a team of kind of they're just shrouded in unknowns, because we knew them for a while. When they were a really good team, we knew them. They would gonna play every game close, but they'd always find a way. They'd find a way. That was kind of the mantra, was FaZe will find a way. They will win this game. They will find the rounds. And they fell off because the clutches didn't go their way. Big rounds didn't go their way. They got battered. Sure, by Na'Vi was a decider game sort of thing. It's not the biggest deal. And we know historically they've struggled to show up to nothing games. But the smash job by MOUZ just let me think that, yeah, they're not in the game right now. And part of it could be, actually, that their team is slowly getting picked apart. The vultures are circling. Everyone wants a great team in CS2. Their FaZe can't afford to hold on to things. Players might be getting nice offers. I think everyone's already been linked to Falcons. But I did see Twist name on there. I think I've myself theorized some rosters that could really benefit from a Twist edition. If Liquid finds some money in their back pocket, there's a crazy return to North America that can be made with the right pieces. So I think there's a lot of, again, it's sort of like Vitality, except worse, because they've not had recent success. There's distractions around them. Maybe not as strong, but just enough to make them maybe not as prepared as they should be going to this tournament, not as focused on the events they've just had. I think this team is, not destined for great things here.
Yeah, I think the characteristic I put on them at the moment is they're not like an aggressive team per se, but I don't even know if it's Twist. It was definitely a North American player that gave an interview talking about the difference between aggressive and explosive. Like there will be rounds where someone's gone for, just standard like map control on, I don't know, say Banana on Inferno or something, and then they'll just pull out 2 kills really quickly as they're getting flurried by utility. Like that's the kind of play that I know FaZe can pull off, because all their individuals are on such a good caliber, or have enough experience and are so good mechanically that they can pull off rounds like that. But I feel like you almost have to be in a very chaotic environment to be explosive. So it almost feels like they're not setting up at the start of rounds in the right ways, or they're not being precautious at all, which is like a good characteristic sometimes. But I almost feel like they get punished for trying to take space or keep the opponent honest when their opponent probably already should have their respect based on where they are in the tournament. I feel like FaZe, they always work on the mapping of, okay, this game in isolation, this team needs to earn our respect here, here, and here, as opposed to coming in with a game plan initially to attack those strong areas or attack like a weak part of a default for them. So I don't know. That's maybe just the Carrigan. Like he is good at manipulating and finding the weakness inside of the game.
He really is.
I just don't know if there's good prep outside of it is the problem.
Yeah, it could be a shortcut. It could be just they're leaning on that now. They've gotten too accustomed to it working, too accustomed to it being the right sort of go-to to just adjust things mid-round, adjust things mid-game, based on Carrigan's read and the comms and the way everyone feels about the game. I'm sure there's a lot of comms from everyone on this roster. Yeah. I think everyone's going to be fairly vocal. So perhaps it is just an over-reliance on that. The other team neither one of us felt comfortable with is Na'Vi. So they finished second at Pro League. And they did have a few good wins. They had one good win against FaZe, who we've just torn slightly to bits. But aside from that, they really didn't beat that many good teams. It's another classic case. They beat Cyclone, Apex, Eternal Fire, Monty, just to get swept in the final. And I felt like this team, sure, finding these results consistently, they didn't drop a map till the grand final. So at least there's some amount of like convincingness to this. Like, I'm not sure that's a real word, but there was a fairly convincing element to this where they were dominant against these rosters that are supposed to be inferior to them. And then FaZe, who was supposed to kind of be on level pegging considering the chaos surrounding the roster. But I didn't really like what I saw in the grand final at all. Like, they didn't look good on any map. Even the map they took to overtime, I thought they still looked a bit disoriented and sloppy. There's no longer, I guess you could say, superstar simple on the roster. So for these sorts of things combined, like if I'm not really sure what I'm going to get out the roster, there's things have changed about the game, and your superstar player who could carry you through a group stage easily and take you on a deep run just hasn't been at that level for a little while now. I'm not going to pick you. That's pretty much my rationale for this team. I think this team will work eventually. Like, IMA being signed looks like a kind of crazy move right now, but I do think long term this does figure itself out. Just, I think we still need to look at a longer time frame than this event.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying earlier that IMA was maybe completely overblown, but he actually had a pretty solid pro league.
I didn't know.
Yeah, it's comparative to other events where he has looked about on par with, like, you know, your bog standard support or even in-game leader sort of numbers, and that's just not what you want from him. Like, you can't be like a scared child in the server when so much of what drew people to him was his ability to just stand tall in like big moments. This was actually an event he didn't shy away in. I'm a little conflicted about not picking Na'Vi because I actually do have a lot of belief that Alexi B will be one of the in-game leaders to innovate the most at the start of this game. You know, maybe akin to like Gob B system with like so much utility usage on T sides and implementation of HEs, and you know, I feel like Alexi will capture the mechanic that people will then use a lot. I don't know whether that's going to be. It's probably going to be something to do with the smokes because that's the main thing that's changed.
Yeah,
but
the way they deploy.
I kind of trust that he will innovate or find something new before anyone else, and do it a bunch, and it'll work for like the first 3 months when nobody else is like found the right way to implement it properly, and then everyone else catches up and they maybe fall behind. I actually think the start of CS2 is more important for Na'Vi than any other team that I have pegged to like win a trophy towards the end of this year.
I don't know, that's interesting because when you say it, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I do think Alexi B is one of the IGLs you put money on to go and innovate and find new stuff. It's just, how much of that can he have implemented now for this event? And also, I love the idea of his strategies, his implementations, use of utility, it being creative, but there's always two sides to the game, and they seem to be really, really struggling to find consistent shooty bang bang power against good opponents, to put it in the most layman's terms. So I think all that stuff is fine and dandy, but I think it's still going to be a struggle for me to believe in them until I see a little more shooty bang bang power.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I hope it works, and I just don't know. I don't know if that, as much as I believe in that Alexi narrative that I was trying to spin, it might not have enough help to make that work as quickly as, you know.
I mean, JL's dreaming about the game. He's practicing his smokes like every night, just in his bed, you know.
Then maybe he's the guy. You know, I need like a, what was it? Was it Keto or Tizian or something? I think it was Tizian mainly.
Probably Tizian, yeah.
He came up with like a bunch of like crazy smokes, and he's always finding something new to give to his in-game. I need somebody like that on Na'Vi, and if JL's the guy, then kudos.
You need a Neek. The guy's going to do his homework, like way too much homework. No one asked you to do this homework, but you're doing it. Like you're that.
Yeah, I need a super nerd. I need Rops, Monacy. I think I saw like Rez was doing some like 4 or 5 hour stream where just looking at nades on different maps and trying to find some new stuff. I need someone like that on this Na'Vi team. So
yeah,
JL, if you're doing it, at me. I need to know.
No, that'd be cool. Because I have seen some cool stuff come out, like, you know, the way the overpass hitboxes work on the bushes up top mean you can molly off the short tunnel from basically straight out of spawn next to toilets. I think that's great. As an A player who always has to rotate to B and help everyone, that'd be great if I could do some of their job for them. But no, it'll be interesting to see what comes out. If there's going to be teams throwing out the crazy, like some crazy one ways, doing some weird flashes, some weird pops, I think it'll be interesting to see. I think this is an event everyone has to watch 100% of. I hope there's not too much like games being streamed at the same time with tough choices. I think we'll want to catch up just for that sort of stuff. The final two teams are Apex and Vertex. Do we have too much to say about them beyond the fact that we don't think they're making it through at all? Like, I mean, Vertex, they're here.
Yeah.
They should get fucking clattered. Like, let's be honest. Unless they do some crazy, like, oh, CS2's different. La 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 la. Here's us doing crazy stuff. Like, I don't see anything working in their favor, so I kind of want to gloss past them. Apex, yeah, it's over for you. It's just over for you.
No Stico. I just don't even know what I like about this team at the moment.
I mean, I still like Jacob. I'll still stand Jacob.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, Nork, I've never been the biggest fan of. Cashinito is Kixen and Sense, like, not worth talking about, in my opinion, on that sort of level. Just not enough to talk about with these guys.
Yeah.
I think we should move on to Group B. Group B, a little weirder, this group, because it feels like there's fewer favourites yet stronger underdogs when you look through the list. So it was a bit different the way we had to pick this one. Yes.
Also, like, we've prefaced before, like, the way we choose favourites or underdogs is based on like the rankings from HLTV is like just a good baseline marker, right? So even though there are some teams that maybe are a little higher ranked, like GamerLegion are here by ESL world ranking qualifications because they do okay at a lot of these events, you know?
Yeah, they keep getting invited.
Things does make things weird.
But yeah, let's start with your favourite, because I think there's no questioning this team's a favourite coming into this event. Who have you taken?
Yep, I've gone with ENCE, even though they did freeze quite a lot during their game against MOUZ. I find it hard to argue against them when some Pius and Nerds look as good as they do. Like, you just need 75% out of somebody like Diha or Madden to finish off, you know, these kills in the mid round for this team to just look kind of unstoppable on T or CT. Like, Nerds, I don't know, man. I find it very hard not to just gush over this guy because he entry frags, he closes rounds, he hunts in mid rounds, he's doing everything. Like, I feel like this guy almost feels like he has to be everywhere, and he does a great job while doing it. You know, he doesn't seem like he gets caught out too often. But the one thing is, if any of those pieces goes missing, like in that MOUZ series where I think Nerds didn't have the best performance on Nuke, I think final map in the series, like, it does become a pretty glaring hole that they are pretty superstar dependent. And, you know, I can't knock that too much when Snappy's made good use of those tools ahead of him.
Yeah, it was a bad nuke, but it wasn't just a bad nuke for him, it was a bad nuke for everyone except Madden, I believe. Like, Madden randomly had a decent score, but it was a rough map to watch overall. As an ENCE like fanboy, essentially, like one of the few teams I'll ever openly support. Yeah, they did just play an underwhelming game of Nuke. I've always liked, especially the way Snappy has like implemented guys like Diha and Madden, who are talented yet don't have necessarily superstar talent or superstar mentality. It's just the problem is the little things he asks them to do, the way they do it, sometimes it can leave them open to just taking aim duels and hoping, or flying into a bomb site and praying that the flashbangs land, and it'll end up looking some really rough games when the entire game plan isn't perfect. So it's nice that they do rely a little more now on superstar players to make plays like Nerds and some Pius, because they actually have enough talent to allow for some more Cloud90 type rounds where you have a guy just taking a dry peek who can make a big play and hit a great headshot. But yeah, I think no reason to bet against them at this event. Top 4 feels guaranteed. It's going to be hard for me to bet against them in any series, really, until they make playoffs. So yeah, nothing really to comment about the pick overall. It's just we did have one bad match from them.
Yeah, and all I'll say is that if there is a problem with CS2 on LAN, get on Snappy's Twitter. He'll tell you. He'll be
Yeah,
one of
he's
the
been
first to
vocal.
openly voice it. He'll just say, "Yeah, listen, man, you can't hit anybody while they're wide swinging. The game needs to fix that." That's the guy that I will trust in that moment to tell me the truth.
Yeah, he's really open and honest. Let's put it that way about his thoughts on the game so far. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they find some silly bugs or something that screws them over. He'll be the first to rage about it, and it'll be revealing. On to another pick that, in terms of this sort of event, feels incredibly solid, and that's my favorite pick of G2 in Group B. Like, sure, they're one of the many teams that MOUZ knocked out at Pro League, and at this point, it was clear before. But as we talk about other teams we want to pick as favourites, it becomes horrifying how obvious it is that MOUZ had one of the stupidest, most absurd underdog runs at an event. It feels like if you could just in one event just point at it and go, but I did that. How am I not a favourite? How am I not legit? They beat fucking everyone. That's amazing. So they knocked out G2 as well. G2 who came off I think a top 4 at Gamers 8. Not great, but not bad. They beat Virtus Pro at Pro League. Like, again, not too many big things to talk about, but you can't bet against, firstly, NiKo, the GOAT rifler of CSGO, with an outside case for a very outside case that takes a lot of statistical explanation to make for the GOAT of CSGO. There's a very fringe case to make, but you can't bet against him, plus m0NESY, who is famously studious, coming into a new game with plenty of new bugs and util and little exploits and optimizations to mess around with. I think he should come in swinging. My only perhaps concern would be like Hunter not having shown the greatest form like over the course of the year, like a bit up and downy. He's not going to be like a top 10 to 12 rifler this year or player this year. It's going to be a little lower down in the rankings. I don't think he's been that great. So if they have an up tournament from Hunter, let's put it this way, I think they win it. If they don't, I think they finish top 4, and that's fine. I've got very little doubt in me that this roster will perform.
I mean, I think Hunter is basically like a solid 6 or 7 in terms of riflers this year for me. So I don't share that same concern.
Maybe pure riflers. I did mean players, because there's at least 6 AWPers who are going to end up ahead of him. So
oh no, yeah, that's as soon as you said riflers, I was like, wait a second, I'm trying to think.
That's why I tried to catch myself on that one.
But yeah, I don't have the same concern. I've thought my problem with Hunter is that like we've seen a really good ceiling from him, and it's really hard for him to ever get back to that point. Because some of that's going to be overshadowed by the fact that NiKo has been incredible for the past like year and a little bit as well. Like hyper consistent, super high impact, like crazy ratings. I think a lot of it is because he's being overshadowed as opposed to him doing much wrong. You know, that said, he almost dives into like a risk taker role when he doesn't have to at times. And I don't know if that's, you know, feeling like he has to get more impact on this team to make it work. But yeah, I just don't have the same problems with this roster. I think it's a very solid pick. For kind of, yeah, m0NESY studied like crazy. I saw a clip yesterday where I was like, oh my god, I didn't even think about that. He got smoked mid-window on Mirage and naded it so that the nade landed outside of the window, did 0 damage to him, didn't tag him, didn't slow him, but dissipated all the smoke, and you can just see all the way through middle, and you just get an easy ult pick. Those are the types of shenanigans I want to see out of m0NESY in particular. But then, like, NiKo, JKS, Hunter can just clean up in late rounds. Like, those guys won't let rounds like that fall apart.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's one of the things that makes NiKo so absurd is the fact that we're talking about him cleaning up late rounds. He is, throughout all of CSGO, the greatest opening killer. Literally. Yeah. Just in terms of volume, hit rate, and also the level at which he's done it. Yeah, it's absurd to call him out for being such a good closer as well. Kind of like how we were saying with Nurse before, how he can just do everything and feels like he must do everything, and just does. And it's absolutely a joy to watch. Actually, I just want to tangent briefly, because I did just look through the list, and I'm thinking, 6, Hunter? I just skimmed, and I got to 9 riflers who probably finish ahead of Hunter this year. And we're just talking pure ratings is the order. Obviously, there's going to be more nuance to the actual debate, but Frozen, Nico, BlameF, Spinks, Sumpire, Stown, Rops, Nerds, then Magisk, Naf, Zershan, Yabi all end up higher in rating. Now, I'm not saying all of those guys should be above him, especially the lower end of that list. Guys like Yabi and Zershan I don't think have been better than him in actual level of play. But rating-wise, we're talking a lot of guys who are actually above him this year. So I think my assessment might be my accidental assessment may have been closer to the truth than either one of us really realized. It's not been Hunter's year.
I don't know. I still can't. I just simply believe, like, mechanically, I'd still put him at least 8. You know, that's the furthest I'll go.
Right.
That's the furthest I'll move. This isn't a ranking podcast.
No, it's not. But it just came up.
Now you got me thinking about it. I'm like, who would I put above?
I just whipped out quickly. I was like, LAN 2023 top 30. See, who
everybody knows Donk is winning number 2 at least. So.
Oh, I mean, Donk is just the best rifler in the world, right? Like, it's just unconfirmed yet. 'Cause he's not gotten to play against everyone.
I'll still give it to Nico, but, you know, Donk can be second.
Donk could be second. All right, fair enough. All right, yeah, that's G2. That's our favourites done. Okay, let's get back on the actual podcast before we start talking about top players again. Underdogs, yeah. We ended up... It's kind of weird, because I think you picked one, then I picked the other one. You're like, I was torn between them, and I was kind of thinking the same, to be honest. I was like, you made the decision for me. Who'd you go for?
So I went with Fnatic. Yeah, that's all I've got. That's all I'm going to say. I picked Fnatic.
I went with them. Say it with your chest.
And I don't even really know why. Here's the thing. This team, when... Like, first off, Mezzy, Roy, Crims, really good foundation, in my opinion. Afro, I've been actually very pleasantly surprised with his impact on the squad. Like, I didn't really know how good he was going to be on Fnatic, but I think his opening month, I think there were maybe like 2 or 3 games where he did kind of shy away. The rest, he actually was like super high impact, going for a lot of openers.
He was pretty insane. Like, not in a super high stats, but he played like he had issues with his mental faculties. He was absolutely nuts, like going for crazy peaks and plays, and it worked out a lot. But Jesus Christ, I didn't think he'd keep that much of his courage from his French scene days.
You know, it almost feels like he's been playing with the team for a lot longer than he actually has, which is cool. But I just, this team, like, it's hard for me to make an argument aside from, like, I like the core of this roster. I still don't really know about Dexter as an in-game leader. I don't even know that's not like a controversial opinion. I think people have talked about him not utilizing his AWPers properly. You know, trying to steal the AWP away even at times, which I think is something that another in-game leader that has now transitioned away from in-game leading, Art, is maybe guilty of doing himself. I just think Dexter, like, it's not that he doesn't play like European Counter-Strike. There's no such thing as European Counter-Strike anymore, really. It's just simply, I don't know that he can read the game in the game well enough for this team. I maybe that's just me talking shit. It probably is. But this team is so hard for me to get behind, even though I like so many different parts of it. I can't even justify it aside from like poor results, and they're unproven. That's why they're in underdogs.
Yeah, no, they're in the right category. The reasons I would have picked them though. So firstly, we got more glimpses of Crims being somewhat back at the last event they played than I think we have in a long time. That's positive, like massively positive for me. To see more from Crims than what I'm actually used to seeing. I also still believe, maybe delusionally, that Mezzy is one of the most OP mechanically gifted players there has ever been in the scene. It's just he hasn't ever been in the right scenario in the tier 1 sides he's played on to ever display it. I mean, the guy's nuts. He's actually kind of bananas when he actually unleashes it. So I still think he's one of those hidden gems that's yet to really be like showed off. I think Afro didn't have the greatest Pro League overall, but again, the fact that he was so assertive and kind of nuts makes me believe that no matter what your thoughts are on Dexter and the way he uses AWPers, Afro's going to find a way to have impact. Afro's going to go do something. He's going to ignore his IGL every now and then and make a play that you probably shouldn't on paper. Like, it'll never be in a textbook, but it'll happen. Honestly, the biggest disappointment for me of the last few games of theirs I've watched has been Roy. Like, I understand and completely agree why you'd say, oh, it's a good foundation of those three players, Roy, Mezzy, Crims. But Roy, I think, has massively fallen off since he started on this Fnatic project. Even then, he came in like a level below, it felt, his Copenhagen Flames level. But he's just slowly petered down, and he still plays his role, but he just doesn't have the impact that I'd hope from him. So that's what keeps these guys from really, I think, taking that next step. It's Roy not having huge impact, alongside maybe some questionable fits in terms of IGLs. It's not convincing.
I think it's as well, like, I don't think there's ever been a period in Mezzy's career where he looks like a superstar type character. You know, in a weird way, I'd liken him to Frozen, in that, you know, for most of Frozen's career, he was kind of the second, third best rifler, but super good mechanics.
Yeah,
seemed to make a lot of right decisions, but never really in like a thrive, like never having the kind of performance that Frozen is having now.
yeah.
And I don't know if that's in-game leading or if that's like personal mantra, because the problem with Mezzy is that he's transitioned to do a lot of different things kind of earlier in his pro or his professional venture, you know, since he joined Fnatic, and even when he was deciding he was going to go in-game lead, and you know, he hybrids a little bit, and he feels like a man that's worn too many hats too quickly, given how short his like tier 1 level experience is.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't know that he has the same amount of time that Frozen has to blossom into that superstar character, because Mezzy's older than him before
he is,
by the time he got to that part of his career. And I don't know that he's ever going to hit that same sort of ceiling. So
well,
he's really, really good mechanically. I just don't know that there's enough firepower output from the baseline of this team as well.
Yeah, that's a very concerning thing, because when you think about Mezzy on a team and you think, who do I want him to be? I want him to be my third best player. Because based on the things he's done whilst in teams like Cloud9, back when that project happened, and on Fnatic, I want him as my third best player because he can win a round at the drop of a hat. He can just hit 2 ridiculous one-taps that no one ever expected to see coming. And he'll be generally solid at being an all-round player. He'll take the fights you want him to take, he'll throw the flashes you want him to throw, and he'll make good decisions when he's left to his own devices. So having as Pro League, he was their best player by a long shot, and I think he has been for a lot of the time on Fnatic, just hasn't been as obvious. Having him as your best player kind of does, I think, limit you, because you need more from everyone else. But the other team that we were kind of picking between, and I'm kind of glad I think I ended up with, as we talk it out, is Complexity. As an underdog, man, they weren't brilliant at ESL Pro League. They beat Cloud9, and they beat regular 9, but then they did lose to G2 and Monty to go out. And those are not terrible losses, considering who the hell else has lost to Monty at that event. Not the worst loss for them. Taking a 2-1 loss to G2 happens, whatever, especially in a decider game to see who goes through, like, first or second, I think in the group it was. Sure, not too bad. Yeah. But the fact that they then go to blast Fall Americas and casually stroll through it, 2-0 Liquid, who obviously had a stand-in and are currently in absolute, I think, hell, really, in terms of their roster, figuring out what to do. But they still beat Furia, they still managed to get the wins across the line. I'm really impressed with their just form coming into this. I think they're going to be a more dangerous side than a lot of people give them credit for. I do think they are. I think there's more changes destined in the NA scene, so I'm seeing in my mind's eye like Liquid making changes that will influence CoL's roster in the next 3 months. But I think where they are right now, the way they've embedded Elige, the way that's like sort of unlocked them, I think in terms of like confidence, mojo, they got better mid-rounding, I think it has just made the team better. I think that's what everyone hoped for Elige when he took the step down in this case, that he would be able to kind of rejuvenate himself by not having to be such an important like fragger, I guess, as well. Because Grim has still been good. Even though Elige, I think statistically is the best, Grim has still been solid with him and the team, and Holzerk hasn't fallen off. So it's been really impressive to see the way he's like integrated himself and adapted. And yeah, I'm hoping for more good things from this team. I'm not going to expect them to go that deep, but good things.
He's also like, he's become the face of Complexity, like very quickly, you know, very.
That's not too surprising.
He's doing a lot of the interviews. Of course, it's not surprising. But the thing is, he's become a very big voice on the team. And I think I remember when we did one of our first previews with Elige making this move, I thought this was like a super slam dunk move because it kind of circumvents the rumored bad parts of Elige's character, him being like toxic or, you know, being too complacent behind the scenes with, you know, who's doing what. And, you know, moving into a new team, you're forced to be open-minded. You know, you have to almost take on a new character to make sure that rumors heard on about him.
Oh, you're back.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you froze, and so that meant I froze. So
yeah. All right. Let's give it a sec. Your image is cleaning up. Is my internet working fine? It is. All right. Cool. I think we should be fun to resume. You were new team. Open to new ideas.
Yes. Open to new ideas. A few technical hiccups, but we moved past it. I just feel as though he's coming with a new mindset. He brings that experience. He's always been like a world class, or at least top of class NA player, and it's exactly what Complexity needed to just like quell the sort of late round anxiety. Sometimes players not knowing what's going wrong, how to fix it. Like Elige is just another voice on that team, which makes JT's job easier and makes the rest of this team just shoot harder. I back Complexity from the start because I'm surprised Liquid let Elige go instead of just like even holding him in like contract jail for a little bit to see how the Liquid project did. You know, they could have had him on the bench for 6 months, tried the European side, and then gone, actually,
Very
North
sorry,
America
Elige.
it is.
Yeah. Here's a fat bonus check and a Mercedes-Benz. Like, here you go. Please come back.
Yeah. Instead, you give him away to your competitor that many times said they have basically become the default best team in North America.
They have, and yeah, honestly, they look better than Liquid right now.
Yeah.
Just straight up, and that's crazy, but it is what it is. That's just the reality of where we're at. That's our picks. There's a couple more teams in Group B that need to be addressed, I think, at least briefly. Primarily being Cloud9, who haven't quite figured it out yet. And that's getting more frustrating by the day as someone who saw the roster and went, done, best team, amazing, they're going to be sensational. I thought they'd take some time to adjust, but damn, it's taken them a long time to look competent. And they've changed things up again. They've taken Electronic off the cooler. Like, they put it on Hobbit. And, it worked because they did it for Showdown, right? That's why they did the Hobbit change. It wasn't actually at Pro League. And it worked at the Showdown, but they got trounced at Pro League, and I'm not sure how much this is going to carry over. Like, I'm not sure what I consider to be more relevant for a long-term prediction, so I'm really not comfortable picking them.
Some of my opinions here are probably colored by a bit of HLTV confirmed.
Okay.
Like, I think it was either Prof or Striker that was saying something along the lines of this just feels like almost disrespectful to like bring in Electronic and Perfecto, have him call, and then just be like, oh well, I guess we're just gonna swap in-game leaders again. Like, surely you give it enough time for it to work. Surely you adopt all those ideas and make it, you know, the new Cloud9 whatever chimera platform that this is supposed to be. Instead, now the rumor is, oh well, now Hobbit just sucks, and now he's the in-game leader. So we're giving Hobbit the last shot to try and redeem himself. I don't know where this came from.
Blame has shifted, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, like we just go from one scapegoat to another on this Cloud9 roster. And if Hobbit starts shooting back, I think at one of the games of the showdown, he actually had a pretty solid map. Good for him, man. But if he starts shooting back, then who becomes the next scapegoat? Where's the leadership? Is it the coaching groove? Was Nafany right all along?
Yeah. We all said it. If the system doesn't change, and it turns out Groove's a fraud, we're gonna have to address that at some point.
And it might not just be Groove. It might be Shiro and
sure,
Axile that are so comfortable with how things were before that they refuse to change because they're still getting good stats now, and they can't guarantee that they will with the new system. I don't know who to blame, and I don't think anyone else knows who to blame. That's why we're just going based off of who's in the red at this event? It's Hobbit. It has to be Hobbit.
Yeah.
Even though he was the spark that made them good in the first place.
True. Yeah, he was the missing link of the youth academy.
And now he's the weakest link. Goodbye.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope they figure it. I hope that somehow just bringing Hobbit onto the IGL fixes all the issues. It'd be an absolute piss take if they figured it all out, still playing the Nafany era style. In some way,
a better shooter player. Players. Like you just have electronic,
yeah, just with better players, like electronic perfecto. That honestly, if you told me in theory, just go back to that system, except you increase the firepower, I'd honestly tell you it just might work.
It could work.
It just might work, and it kind of seems like they've agreed. They've gone let's just take some duels, innit? Just take some duels. Perfecto can win a few more clutches than Buster or Inter's ever could, and there you go. We've got a roster again. That might actually be the rationale, which would be mega depressing and mega satisfying when BetBoom hopefully knock him out.
Also, Axile's not been playing that hot since the change, right?
He really wasn't good at Pro League. He was great during the Blast Premier Showdown thing, which is nice. But to be fair, they just smurfed and farmed and went straight through. The stats don't really reflect much. I don't think it's that interesting of an event to follow. It'd be very interesting to see how he performs here. Hopefully, for their sakes, good. But realistically, I hope this ridiculous switch up doesn't work out for them. Of just falling back on old ways, but doing it with better players would be so insulting. But finally, I kind of think we have to touch on someone. Monty.
Yeah, I know.
It's wild to say this because I don't think Bro's been particularly good. He hasn't. Okay, just making sure I wasn't going crazy. But the team is working, and it feels like it's Waro2K deciding we're going to go win stuff. Hold my bit. Am I completely off base? It just feels like he's dragging and willing them through certain key series and key rounds. And somehow the roster's still winning, even though they really, I think, on paper shouldn't be.
So he's not in-game leading anymore, from my understanding, right? Like that's fully an SDY deal.
It is.
The thing is, when he was calling, when SDY first came into the team, Waro would still have performances like that, where it's like the opening 30, 40 seconds in a round, they find themselves in like a 3v5 or a 3v4, and all they have is like mid control. Like Waro is the guy hunting for frags to restabilize and somehow get the round back into favor. And that seems like he's just amplified his willingness to like go hyper aggressive in those moments for this Monty team. Like that Pro League run, I mean, it's super legit. I think it's really weird. I think it's less about Waro for me and more about like Krasnal, who I didn't really have a lot of stock in as an individual player. Like had a good round here or there, sure. But I felt like he was making fewer mistakes than I've seen in some of the online circuit games, which just helps like hunt in mid late rounds. Because I actually think I've rated Demq since he was on Crazy like a long time ago. Super just refined player that I thought, he was a part of that whole Akuma thing. And people really just like snubbed him because of that. And fair. I think every player has a respect meter, and if you go too far below the threshold, you're just overlooked. But both Demq and Waro are like the forgotten kids of Ukrainian Counter-Strike, because they've had a bit of a shit kid personality or they've been attached to the wrong teams. So
Yeah.
they're good players, which I think like just further validates this Monty project.
Yeah, Demko especially has been huge. Because the void of Boros leaving for me was a bit of a weird one to fill because there was no one who naturally fit. Like Krasnal, there were times on Polish rosters where he would be hyper aggressive, but it really wasn't something he excelled at in any special way. And on this team, he'd found a decent spot, even if it was at times a bit up in the air as to what he actually was in terms of more aggressive, more supportive. He found a decent spot, and if you look at their numbers, they basically just. It's a committee thing, like who's actually taking the opening frags, who's taking that early aggro, who's making a play initially. On CT side, it seems very, very diverse. The one thing that we both could agree on, though, is that yes, War 2K is now just mid-round and onwards. Beast. I'm making it happen. I'm making it happen. Give me space, let me cook, and I'll make something happen. Yeah, interesting that you point out, because when you started talking about Krasnal, I was like, I think he particularly stepped up than you. Like, he's making less mistakes. I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. That's what's changed about his game. It's not that he's magically turned into a goat. He's just stopped being quite so dumb sometimes, and that's good to see. That's nice. It's good for him because Bro wasn't really that much of an issue. I just didn't think he'd replaced Boros's impact, which is why I was a bit dubious about how the team was going to win. But no, yeah, more solid play from them. Whilst Waro gets to be a bit more crazy with the AWP. The mistake eradicator really. So you can just be out of position, but you clicked once, so you win. It kind of has been working out for them. So, yeah, hopefully they'll show us some good Counter-Strike. I'm not sure they're going to go very deep. I think it's going to be a weird one for them because they're still preparing for Challenger League, which is that in CS2 or Go? Like, I feel like that's still Go, isn't it?
Challenger League is CS2 now.
Oh, is it 2? Has it changed over?
Yeah. So the start of the season was CS2.
Oh, yeah, it is 2. Okay, yeah, I was following these games today. Never mind, what am I talking about? I didn't realize that was Challenger League that I was following.
They do look quite similar. And also, listen, this is a message to Valve. All the good graphics and all the good colors and stuff, that all just looks the same in our brains when we're processing and trying to shoot people in the face.
It's true. I don't realize the game looks better. I don't realize the game looks better until I put it next to it and go, oh, yeah, it does, I guess. And I go back to playing the game, I'm like, this is just Counter-Strike, isn't it?
Yeah, it all just phases into the same pixels, even if I'm 1920, 1080, 4K resolution, doesn't matter. My brain compresses that information into like an 800 by 600 square, and I'm just shooting at people in the head, or trying my best to.
Yeah, I think the one thing that always drags me out of it, though, is the audio. I still haven't got used to the... Firstly, the way audio is processed pisses me off still. But just the sound of guns is so different that does kind of make me go, oh yeah, this is a different game. Like, why does the AK sound like this? It's a bit different. Yeah. But yeah, the audio is it's so far been so frustrating. Number of things I've missed because the deafening effect / like resonance is so loud sometimes. I feel like I'm missing callouts from teammates. And there's an off chance that in my solo queue games, the random Russian children are not making callouts. I mean, there's a slim chance of that being the case. Otherwise, it's the flashbangs and nades just deafening me, and I can't hear them. And it's quite frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, people have been complaining about all the audio bouncing and like calculating to get to you being a problem. I think
it's so hard to tell when you're getting rushed. Like if you're hidden behind something, they could be like on top of you before you hear a step, pretty much.
And that's, I think, Elige brought it up on HLTV Confirmed. It's like Vertigo is the worst map in the pool, or one of the worst maps in the pool now because of that audio issue. Because if you imagine you're starting A out of spawn as a CT player, one of the ways you indicated there was going to be a rush is that you'd hear them all crossing over the bridge and you'd hear the wood steps coming up.
Yeah.
You get to like Ivy on CT side. You've heard maybe like 2 steps. You maybe hear your first wood step and they're in your face. Like you've lost all that auditory information. You're so reliant on somebody else relaying that to you because they're just sat elevator, just ears glued to their headsets.
Even then.
And it's still hard. It is still hard.
Like, directionally, I'm so stuffed. I play mid on Vertigo on CT side. I was like, oh, I heard steps. I was like, oh, guys, hey, watch out. Hey, I'm hearing like 4 or 5 steps just to look away from my radar just to see 4 dudes flood out mid. I was like, wait, and then obviously died. But yeah, the audio directionally also seems really confusing right now. So I think hopefully we'll get used to it, and they'll sneakily change things behind the scene just enough for us to not notice. We'll all think, oh, we're getting really good at this. Like, no, they've just made it better. Hopefully that's going to happen, because so far it's very confusing.
Yeah, it feels like there's like some audio, like they probably do some like weird audio path taking where it has to go through like open space to get to you first, right? They will probably have to shortcut or find ways to shortcut through maps, or like give you like, I don't know, a small vent in elevator on Vertigo where somehow all the audio is traveling through there. It still works in the world of their new audio system. But there will be these weird bypasses or fixes they'll do to these maps to make them like, people like that it's more realistic, but only if it doesn't detract from core gameplay.
Yeah, that's the
and
problem.
At the moment, that's what it's doing. So
could be an interesting. Now that you mentioned that sort of vent, it could be an interesting aspect of like CS2 map design when we do eventually get original maps. Like maybe incorporating the fact that the sound is different and new will be an aspect of balance. Like making sure you don't overclutter certain areas so that CTs have a chance of hearing the sound waves as they correctly and scientifically bounce their way around the map. Like, maybe it's something to keep in mind as a map designer, but
just a bunch of open telephones around the map. and like proximity voice chat. So I can shit talk my opponent through the phone.
I still think that'd be an interesting addition to Counter-Strike. I think there's definitely a mod for it somewhere. Proximity strike. Could probably be called that.
That existed.
Like, I would have a lot of fun with that. I mean, I already had a lot of fun with it in like games like PUBG, or was it PUBG that had proximity chat? It was PUBG, right? Yeah, just talking smack to people as you run away from them because they miss, and just like endlessly rail them because they'll never hit the shot. Once they miss once and you start talking shit, they'll never hit the shot. That was always a fun
now we're
aspect.
not allowed to because people were either abusive or people just don't know how to have fun.
Gamers saying gamer words? No.
I mean, there's that, but then also it's like, oh, well, now they know I'm a little kid and they're going to bully me for it. So let me just enjoy my game in silence, please.
Bring back halftime chat.
Maybe.
That was the greatest fiasco to endure. Like, for good old days. Man. But alright, we've touched on the things we need to touch on, I think. With our few technical issues thrown in there, we're going to actually cut. Probably not going to be an hour and 15 minutes. It'll probably be a bit shorter than that. But still, quite a hefty episode, considering it's actually not the biggest event. But yeah, it should be an interesting one to follow. We're going to see a lot of stuff with CS2, a lot of new things for teams. Hopefully not too many changes in terms of the dynamics of who's good and who's bad, because it's going to be hard to wrap your head around. If after the one event, immediately all the underdogs are better than the good teams, that'll be a fucking piss take.
Oh boy.
Richard Lewis will
Change
have
is coming.
Day. Change
is coming.
Hopefully not too much changes. Hopefully our picks are good. Well, my picks. Screw you, Maui. Yumi. Oh my god, I just call you Maui. I'm sorry.
I'll have you know I back Nafany.
Yeah. Not yours. But yeah. And hopefully I'll get the polls out in time. I try to every time. I've got like a 60% hit rate on getting the polls out to the community. That's not very good, but it's great for you guys because it gets you the views, like the viewers, the score anyway. Like, you guys get the win if I don't put the poll out. So look out for those. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.